Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Well-Appointed Mystic. Today, I'm going to be doing a VR to Candy Soul and Soil on collections meet decks. And I had seen her video and thought it was lovely, and I really enjoyed seeing all the books and everything, and I was like, well, I have a big book collection, maybe I can do something. And I don't know, I was eating my lunch today and boom, it popped in my head. What do I have the biggest collection of? Fountain pens. This is just a small smattering of my collection, so I could probably do like 4 more of these videos if I wanted to, if you all wanted to see more. But I thought since I love tarot cards and I love fountain pens, this seems like a perfect fit. And so I thought I would go ahead and do my collection of fountain pens meet a small smattering of my tarot decks. So hopefully not giving anything away by showing you what pens, just so you have something to look at while I sit here and babble. But when I pair the decks together, maybe this will provide you with something interesting to watch and look at. So we're going to slide the pens out of the way for a second and pick one to start with. And I think I will start with this, which is a very special pen. I purchased it at the DC Pen Show about 5 years ago from an artist from, I think he lives in New York, like Brooklyn, New York area, that goes by, I think 1101 is sort of what his shop's name on Etsy and that kind of thing. But he makes this wonderful roll stop that looks like a cherry blossom or cherry tree branch, and it is actually silver, and mine is all tarnished because it's been I have not polished it or anything, and it slides over this detailing which he laser etches and then fills with mica powder to make the cherry flowers on the pen barrel. So just like an extraordinary, beautiful pen. And I paired it with a nib that was created by my friend Ralph, who does all sorts of custom flex nibs and stacked nibs and all kinds of craziness. So this one has a deep slit and a lot of flex, and so I put what I like to think of as a ridiculous pen with a ridiculous nib, but it's just like all of that in a bag of chips. So I paired this with my favorite deck, the Tarot de Carlotides, or Carlotides, depending on who you ask. One, because I feel like the flowers on the card back perfectly match the cherry blossom flowers that are on the pen. But also, this deck is very special to me, as is this pen. It's very unusual and unique, and I just feel like they're just a good pair. The coloring is very similar. Just this sort of, the roll stop reminds me of a lot of the pen work in the design of the cards. I mean, it just was like, it was like a no-brainer when I started thinking about like what deck would I pair with this pen. And it was like an immediate, these two go together. So this is the Cherry Blossom from 1101 and the Tarot de Carlotides. So that was my first one. So next up, I think I'm going to do this, which is, it is a Sailor ProGear Slim, and it is a very unusual model. I think it's called the Cosmos, something like that. It was something that so Sailor's been making a lot of special edition pens over the last 3 or 4 years, where you can get different barrel colors and translucent plastics, and the end cap is a different color from the cap, which is a different color from the barrel, which is a different color from the other end cap. You know, they've changed out the little design here. I have several others, but this was one of the very first ones that they were sort of started playing around with, not just a standard like 5 crayon colors, and has become one of my favorites. It has just a really nice nib on it. This is a 14 karat gold, just a standard hard fine nib. And I want to say, oh, and I got this at the Chicago Pen Show from a guy who knew I liked Sailor ProGears and said, oh, have you seen this one? And I said, no, sir, I have not. Thank you very much. Here, take all my money. But anyway, so it has become the pen, because it's black and it's sparkly, it has kind of become the pen that I keep with my tarot journal, and just sort of, it kind of lives with all of my magical stuff. So it has kind of, it's the one that I use for tarot journaling, for witchy journaling, for all that kind of stuff. So the perfect match for me is the Everyday Witch Tarot. Again, they're both like everyday users. They're a little witchy, but also a little silly. I mean, this is covered in sparkles. I think that the Everyday Witch Tarot would approve of a pen covered in sparkles, but still black and a little, you know, a little gothy, little, you know, little punk rock. But yeah, so this was my pairing. I felt like this pen really coordinated with the Everyday Witch, you know. It's sort of the black cat pen, you know. So that is my pairing number 2. So next, I'm just going to stick with the theme here. This is my other pretty much everyday use Sailor. It is actually from Nagasawa, which is a Japanese pen shop. They do a lot of work with, like have special editions with Sailor. And this one, I always want to call it Spring Green, but I think that the name is like, it's translated, I think, based on like a neighborhood in Nagasawa or something, but it's like college green or something like that. But anyway, it's just kind of this like citron-y yellow-green color, which is one of my favorite colors. This also has a hard fine nib, which are my favorites, 14 karat gold. It's just, I love this pen so much that I have actually purchased it twice because it went missing and I was terrified I would never find it, like that it had fallen out of my bag or something like that. And so I found someone who still had them in stock, and I bought another one, and then this first one reappeared. So I have 2 of them, exactly the same. And I love them both, and I often have them both filled up with ink. And this one lives with my daily planner that I use for my it's like my daily journal, daily plan kind of thing. So it's just like an everyday use. I use it all the time. And so I thought it would pair perfectly with the Dreaming Way Tarot, which is also a deck that is not to like, that's just the color coordination, but this is an everyday user. This is just something that means a lot to me and that I would purchase again. If this deck ever disappeared or got lost, I would buy another one just as fast as I bought a spare fountain pen. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of just aesthetic similarities as well, since the Dreaming Way has a very Japanese feel and just sleek, clean line work and details in the same way that the pen does. So that is my Dreaming Way Tarot and my Nagasawa Sailor pen. So that's number 3. Next up, I have been collecting, one of the very first fountain pens that I ever got was a Kaweco Sport, just in the plain plastic. It might have actually been this one, this black one, which has a little, I was so excited about getting my first you know, fancy pen or whatever, that I got the clip to go on it and everything, and just has been a favorite. And it has this little guilloche pattern. I don't know if you can see it in the light, which is just a carving technique. And I've carried it around so much that I've basically worn some of the finish off. But, you know, it's a plastic pen. What can I say? But I now have, I don't know, probably 20 of these because they're not very expensive. They usually come in at around $25 to $30 depending on where you purchase it. And it's just a tiny, cute, trusty little pen. But again, these are just pens that, like, they're just tried and true. I carry them with me all the time. They bring me a lot of comfort. And so my immediate thought was the perfect pairing for this would be the Cozy Witch. If you've never seen a Kaweco Sport, they look really short. Like, it's essentially the same length as this deck trimmed. But you just cap it. You post the cap to make it more like a full-size pen. And these have stainless steel nibs. They're often gold toned or chrome silver toned. But again, like I said, they tend to be right around the $20 to $30 range. So I pulled these two in particular because, again, the black makes me think witchy things. And then the warm mossy green reminded me of the colors on a lot of these cards. And so I just think that this was a good pairing. This is a very, like, it's a comfort pen. I often throw one in my bag all the time. And this deck has a lot of that same kind of sort of softness and just easy to use, easy to read. Kaweco Sports are pens that are easy to use. They just take a cartridge, you know, that kind of thing. So that is so I trimmed this deck so much that the backs aren't even anymore. So there's definitely, that was the only downside of trimming the crap out of it. But I think it looks much better, and I much appreciate not having the keywords on the bottom because I didn't necessarily agree with all of them. And the same key phrases are in the guidebook. So if I wanted to refer to them, I could, but I prefer them without. So in the same way that Kaweco Sports, you can have a clip or not, you can make them all fancy. And in this case, I have this lovely little sleeve that goes perfectly with the aesthetic of this deck, I think. So that is the Cozy Witch Tarot and the Kaweco Sport, which I'm struggling to get in here. They fit perfectly if you don't have the clip on there. I make my life a little more difficult by having one with a clip. So the next one I'm going to show is this lovely little pen. It is, let's see if we can get this to show up. This is a shown design. I believe it is brass. It's quite heavy for the size because it is tiny when you put it next to like a standard pen, and even next to the Kawecos. Like, the Kawecos are longer as well. So it is a very tiny pen. But this one is particularly special to me because this was one of the first ones that he ever did with this sort of faceted quality. So this one is one of about 12 that were hand faceted. And we jokingly refer to it as the Ferrero Rocher. And he brought them to a pen show. Ian Schoen, the owner of the company, brought them to a pen show, and we literally just like bought every single one as fast as we could, every time we saw them, and have been able to track down who all has bought these various models. And we found about 6 out of the 12 of them. And we've tried to put them together in like a photograph to like kind of show Ian that we have been keeping track of where all of the Ferrero Rochers have gone to. And this one is extra special to me as well because it has a Franklin Christoph nib that my friend Audrey ground for me into a lovely, what is it called? Soft Italic Gradient, SIG, which we just call a SIG. So it is kind of a little bit of an italic, and she just does such a beautiful job. And I just loved it. So this is my Ian Schoen design Ferrero Rocher. and it is tiny and sweet and very, very special to me. And the deck that I pair this with is the Oak, Ash, and Thorn, which is also sweet and cute and tiny, and has a lot of sentimental value to me. So this is the mini deck for scale. This is the mini version of the Oak, Ash, and Thorn combined with the very mini shown pen. So that is combo number 5. And I just think it's a perfect match. This one and the 1101 with the Carlotides is just like, I mean, they all are like 100% spot on for me, just because both the decks and the pens mean so much to me. So I'm sure everyone has the same reaction to their various collections. So next up, the last 2 that I have to show are pens where I have more than one deck that was a good match. And I think that that's okay. So this is the most ridiculous Bennu Skull and Roses. So there are skulls around just above the cap band, like the cap band, so just above where the cap twists, and then engraved roses all over the rest of the pen. It is just the silliest thing. It's a plastic pen, so it's not heavy. It's a little bit longer than a lot of my pens and a bit wider. But when you open it up, it has a really nice long grip section that narrows nicely. And because this is such a silly pen, I gave it to a friend of mine who is a nib grinder, Richard Binder, and I asked him to give me the most ridiculous nib grind that I could think of, and had him do his like ultra extra fine needle point. So it was basically, there's a needle inside my Skull and Roses pen. So it's a very pointy, it's very fun. It's great for writing on really cheap garbage paper, because it doesn't bleed very much. But as one would expect, my first pairing for this is the Gothmancy Tarot. Because of course it's Skull and Roses. It's just audaciously silly. And I feel like the Gothmancy also has, tongue firmly planted in cheek, in terms of sort of some of the graphics. I mean, the exploited, that kind of thing. So some of these cards I look at and I'm like, do I know who that is? I'm not sure. I would have to look them up. But I mean, it's Vincent Price. So yeah, it's just like, of course, it's very, this is a very gothy looking pen. It's very playful. And I feel like the Gothmancy was a perfect match. So can you guess what my second deck is for this one? I bet you can. If you guessed Antique Anatomy, you were 100% right. Because of course, if it has Skulls and Roses, the Antique Anatomy is a perfect match. It is also Flowers and Bones. So again, I didn't feel like this was not a real stretch, but it was, of course, like clearly my interests intersect. I look for silly gothy things, both in my tarot and in my pens. But yeah, so I thought that this was a really good combo. I do often carry this pen with me and use it to take notes and, do my sort of daily draw kind of stuff. But yeah, so that is the Bennu Skull and Roses. And okay, we're down to our last one. And this one is going to be the most ridiculous. So this is the custom-made stand from Dudek that he made for me to hold my assortment of vintage Lady Sheaffer Skriptserts. These are not all of them. I have many more, but these are sort of one of each of some of the most fancy pants of these pens. So the Lady Sheaffer Skriptserts were advertised and designed to be, you know, fancy ladies' pens. They're thinner, like narrower than a lot of vintage pens that were targeted towards men. And so, you know, and one of the things was these came out in like the 1960s and 70s. These with the shorter ends are later 60s, early 70s. These other ones were, I mean, 50s and 60s with the rounded ends. So, yeah, I have a ridiculous, I even have a display of like an old store display completely filled with these pens. But anyway, so I knew I was going to have to include these because they are very audacious. They were designed to take cartridges only so that it would be neat and tidy and you wouldn't get your white gloves dirty filling ink, which is crazy. And they have these lovely, like, partial, what do they call them? But the nibs go like all the way around. So it's like a whole piece. It's not just like a piece of metal stuck into a feed. It like wraps all the way around. So they're really, really unique. And some of these, like this one has the gems that slide around here. They're all like little crystals and are often referred to as the wedding ring. So like the idea was that, you know, your fiance would get you one of these pens, you know, for your engagement kind of thing. And some of these have this lovely little secret pop of color on the inside. I'm not sure if any of these other ones, yeah, this one's black, was $27.50 when originally released. So this one's never been used. So some of these I do use, and some of them I just collect. This is a very late model, pretty rare, this particular patterning, which has this lovely gold shine. And in the later models, they started doing this sort of semi-hooded nib. And again, this one's never been used. But yeah, so these are Lady Sheaffer Skriptserts. I love these pens and I love collecting them. And for a long time, they were easy to collect because the majority of vintage pen collectors are men, and these were too girly for them. So win-win for me. So it will come as no shock, I think, to see what I pair these pens with. And that is the Art Nouveau, the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot. One, the patterning that's on these cards totally reminds me like of this pen in terms of just like sort of how it catches the light, or even this guy, you know. They're just, these cards are fancy and over the top, and I feel like it is a perfect match for the Lady Sheaffer Skriptserts, which tend to be a little over the top. I mean, like even when you look at some of the ones that are in other colors, they're just so fancy, and you know, crazy patterns. But yeah, so Lady Sheaffer Skriptserts totally pair with the Golden Art Nouveau. Also think that the Tarot Mucha, which is a very similar aesthetic, would also be a good match. So a little less blingy. So maybe this is the Lady Sheaffer when she's a little more serious, a little more understated. But yeah, so the Lady Sheaffers and the Tarot Mucha and the Golden Art Nouveau. So I think that they're both, again, you know, like everything that people collect, you collect things because they have meaning for you. You're sort of bonded to them or emotionally attached in some way. And that is definitely how I feel about these pens, as well as my tarot decks. So I feel like it's all of that, you know, like that's why this particular tag I thought was so fun, because we do have a lot of places where our interests intersect and overlap, and seeing those trends, I guess, from one to the other. If you collect mystery novels and also have spooky tarot decks or, you know, something like that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this. This was fountain pens meet tarot decks, and I suppose I could make a pretty tableau for you to look at the end. So we'll move the decks out of the way and pull the pens back in, and you can see all the lovelies. So yeah, so thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.